She came storming down the gravel road, her face red with fury, waving a thick stack of papers. "You're fined $5,000 for unauthorized farming," she shouted, pointing right at my rusty old tractor. I didn't say a word at first, just watched, as she paced back and forth like she owned the whole valley. Little did she know that ranch she thought she ruled, I owned every inch of it. When she slapped that HOA notice on my gate, declaring I had no right to farm, I just smiled. "You're trespassing," I told her quietly. Her eyes narrowed. "I'm the HOA president. This land is under our rules." I shook my head. "Not when I have the deed in my hand." She laughed, but I could see the doubt creeping in. Then, she made the mistake, threatening to call the sheriff to make me stop. That's when I reached into my jacket pocket, pulling out my old military ID and a set of real property documents. "Try that, and you'll be explaining to my lawyer why you were trespassing on private land." The look on her face? Priceless. But this was just the start of her nightmare. Her smug smile faltered, but she didn't back down. "You don't scare me. The HOA has authority here. You're breaking rules everyone else follows." I stepped closer, voice low but steady. "You think that paper you pinned on my gate means anything? I fought overseas for this land. You're just a loudmouth with a clipboard." She stomped her foot, then suddenly pulled out her phone, fingers trembling. "I'm calling the cops. They'll shut you down." I watched her dial, but before she could press send, I calmly said, "Wait." She paused, confused. I reached into my pocket again and pulled out a video on my phone. Footage from my security cameras showing her sneaking onto my property after dark, tearing up fences and taking crops. That's trespassing. Illegal farming doesn't just go one way. Her phone slipped from her hand, eyes wide. "You can't prove that," she hissed. I smiled, feeling the tide turn. "Oh, I can, and I will." Suddenly, headlights flashed at the end of the road. She looked toward them, panic setting in. "Who's that?" I asked quietly. "Just neighbors." She stammered, but her shaking hands told a different story. This fight was far from over, and she was already losing. The headlights grew closer, revealing two uniformed officers stepping out of their patrol car. The HOA president's face drained of color as she hurried toward them, pointing at me like I was the criminal. "He's ignoring HOA rules. He's trespassing on community land," she declared, voice trembling with forced confidence. The officers glanced at me, then at her, and asked for my ID. I handed over my military badge and property deeds without hesitation. One officer raised an eyebrow, flipping through the papers, then nodded toward the camera on my phone. "You say you have proof of trespassing?" I showed them the video, her sneaking around my ranch, tearing up fences, destroying crops. The officers exchanged looks, then turned back to the HOA president. "Ma'am, this is private property. Do you have any legal claim here?" She stammered, unable to answer. One of the officers stepped closer, voice firm. "Impersonating an HOA official and making false claims could get you arrested for fraud and trespassing." Her face twisted in anger and fear. "You'll regret this," she spat, but her bravado was cracking. The officers turned to me. "You're free to carry on. We'll be filing a report against her for false accusations." I looked at her one last time. "This land means more to me than your rules ever will." And with that, the real fight had just begun. She stormed off, muttering threats I barely heard, but then, out of nowhere, a sleek black truck rolled up beside me. A tall man stepped out, wearing a sharp suit and a calm, confident smile. "I'm Jack," he said, extending a hand. "I represent the local landowners association. We've been watching that HOA's illegal overreach for months." I shook his hand, curious. "What's your angle?" He chuckled. "Let's just say, I know how to make sure people like her don't get away with bullying ranchers like you." Before I could ask more, he pulled out a folder thick with papers, legal notices, recorded meetings where the HOA president admitted to falsifying claims, even proof she was selling community land without approval. With this, we can file a case that not only protects your land but exposes the HOA's corruption. You'll never have to deal with her again." I glanced back at my property, feeling a surge of hope. This fight was bigger than just me, and, with the right backing, I might just win it all. But as Jack spoke, I noticed a flicker of something else in his eyes, something he wasn't telling me yet. That night, as I sat by the fire pit on my porch, Jack's words replayed in my mind. The documents, the recordings, they were gold, but something felt off. Why had he appeared out of nowhere? Before I could ask, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Be careful who you trust. Not everyone fighting the HOA is on your side." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Was Jack really my ally, or just another player in this twisted game? Just then, headlights flashed again, this time from across the valley. A convoy of trucks rolled in, carrying more armed men. My old military instincts kicked in. These weren't neighbors. They were hired muscle, sent to intimidate me. The HOA president must have called in reinforcements, desperate to crush me before the truth came out. I grabbed my rifle from inside the house, loading it slowly, thinking about the family I was protecting, the land I had fought so hard to keep. This wasn't just about property anymore. It was about survival. And I was ready for whatever came next. The men approached cautiously, but I stood my ground on the porch, rifle steady in my hands. One of them called out, "You need to stop messing with the HOA. This is your final warning." I looked them dead in the eye. "I don't answer to you, or her." Suddenly, a voice crackled from a walkie-talkie in the leader's hand. "Hold. Up, we've got a problem." Confused, the men glanced at each other as a black SUV pulled in fast, sirens off but lights flashing. The sheriff himself stepped out, nodding at me. "I got your call earlier, sir. We traced those trucks back to a private security firm hired by that HOA president. She's gone too far." Relief washed over me, but I kept my rifle ready. "Shra," Sheriff continued, "we're here to shut this down, and we're bringing her in for questioning about fraud and intimidation." The hired men started backing off, but the leader sneered, "This isn't over." I met his glare without flinching. "Try me." The sheriff motioned for me to lower the rifle, then turned toward the approaching convoy. Tonight, justice was finally rolling in, but the fight for my land and my family's safety was just heating up. Back at the sheriff's station, the HOA president sat handcuffed, her face pale and defeated. She kept trying to protest, claiming she was protecting the community, but no one believed her. The sheriff leaned in, voice low but firm. "You abused your power, falsified documents, and threatened a veteran on his own land. This ends now." As I watched from the other room, a mix of satisfaction and relief settled over me. But just when I thought it was over, Jack appeared again, this time holding a folder stamped "Confidential." "There's more," he said, quietly. She wasn't working alone. There's a bigger scheme to take over several ranches, and some powerful people are behind it. My mind raced. What had I stumbled into? The simple fight for my ranch was turning into a battle against something much darker. But I wasn't about to back down. Not now, not ever. This land was my legacy, and I would protect it no matter the cost. The real war was just beginning. That night, I dug through the files Jack had given me. Bank transfers, hidden contracts, fake ownership claims, all pointing to a shadowy group buying up land through crooked HOA deals. One name kept popping up, a wealthy developer known for bulldozing family farms. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. "They know you're onto them. Watch your back." I looked out at the dark fields, the wind rustling the crops I'd fought so hard to grow. Fear was real, but so was determination. I called Jack. "If this is bigger than the HOA, we need a plan." He replied, "I'm already working on it, but you need to stay careful. They won't stop." As I hung up, headlights appeared once more, but this time it was my neighbors. Farmers and ranchers who'd heard what was happening and were ready to stand with me. The battle for our land wasn't just mine anymore. It was all of ours, and together, We were about to take back what was rightfully ours. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with whispered talks and quiet preparations. I stood at the edge of my property, watching familiar faces gather, old-timers with worn hats, families with kids, farmers who knew every inch of this land. Jack was there too, handing out legal papers and cameras for evidence. "If they try to bulldoze anything," he said, "we'll have everything recorded. No more lies." Just then, the HOA president's truck rolled past, slow and cautious. She glanced our way, her face tight with anger. But we didn't flinch, the power was shifting. Suddenly a loud cheer broke out. A neighbor holding up a sign that read, "We own this land." The crowd rallied, voices rising in unison, demanding their rights. That day I realized this fight wasn't just about fences or crops. It was about standing up against corruption, about defending what's ours. And no matter what came next, we were ready. Because when a community stands together, no fake HOA or greedy developer can win. Days later, the news crews showed up, cameras flashing as reporters interviewed me and my neighbors. The story had gone viral. Veteran battles corrupt HOA saves community ranches. The HOA president tried to hide, but the pressure was too much. Her fake notices were exposed, her lies unraveling in public. Then came the final twist. Court. Papers arrived showing the developer had bribed local officials to back the HOA's illegal claims. With Jack's help, we filed a massive lawsuit, and the corrupt players began to fall one by one. Standing in front of my land, I felt a deep pride. This wasn't just my victory. It was everyone's who believed in justice and the right to protect their homes. As the sun set over the ranch, I whispered, "I didn't fight for this country to lose my land to bullies." And from that day on, no HOA notice ever dared to cross my gate again. Months passed, but the fight wasn't over yet. The court battles dragged on, with the developer and his allies fighting dirty, threats, backdoor deals, even attempts to intimidate my family. One night, my daughter found a strange note slipped under our door. "Give up or else." I showed it to Jack, who tightened his jaw. "They're scared because we're close to winning, but we can't back down now." The community stayed strong, rallying around us like a shield. One evening during a town meeting packed with residents, the HOA president tried to speak, but was drowned out by chants demanding her removal. Suddenly, the sheriff entered with a warrant. She was being arrested for multiple crimes, including fraud and harassment. As she was led away in handcuffs, the room erupted in cheers. Tears welled up in my eyes, not just for the victory, but for the future we'd secured. This was more than a fight for land. It was a battle for respect, for family, and for justice. And in that moment, I knew we had won something no one could ever take away. The sun rose over the ranch, golden light spilling across the fields I'd fought so hard to protect. Standing there, I felt the weight of every struggle, every threat, every sleepless night fade away. My family gathered beside me, stronger, safer, and proud. The land wasn't just dirt and crops, it was our legacy, our freedom. I looked out over the horizon and thought about everything that had happened, the lies, the threats, the battles. But most of all, I thought about what it meant to stand firm when no one else would. "This land is mine," I said quietly, "and no one will take it away." Around me, the community was alive, united by the fight we'd won together. The corrupt HOA was gone, the greedy developers exposed, and justice served in a way that mattered. Because here in America, the right to your land is the right to your life, and that's something worth fighting for no matter what.